The moment Earth's sentence was delivered, the world held its breath. It came suddenly, without warning, as a cold voice echoed across every screen, every communication device on the planet. The Galactic Tribunal, a vast and powerful council composed of ancient alien species, had reached its verdict. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was no longer a part of the galactic community. The decision was final. Earth was to be isolated from all interstellar activity, cut off from trade, diplomacy, and any future space exploration. The tribunal believed that humanity, with its unchecked violence, selfishness, and inability to control its destructive tendencies, was too dangerous to be allowed to roam the stars. As the words of the sentence rang out, there was no immediate outcry. The humans were stunned into silence, unable to fully process the weight of the declaration. The tribunal, distant and composed, had no care for the emotional shock it would cause. They were certain the humans would accept their fate after all. This was not the first time they had passed such a judgment. But they had not anticipated the quiet determination that would rise from Earth's people in response. Across the globe, the news spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond. The people took to the streets in a mixture of disbelief and anger. Yet, amid the chaos, something unexpected occurred. In the cities, in the corners of Earth where hope had often seemed to wane, a new fire was ignited. Something deep inside the human spirit stirred, and it wasn't resignation or defeat that emerged. It was a quiet, unyielding resolve. The humans would not accept this sentence. They would not go quietly into the dark. It started slowly at first. In private rooms and small meetings, leaders and scientists gathered. No one was sure how to proceed, but one thing became clear: the only way to break free from this isolation was to prove their worth. They couldn't do it through the power of armies, at least not the way the tribunal might expect. No, humanity would have to show something far more powerful. They would have to show ingenuity, determination, and the one thing that set them apart from all other races: unity. Within days of the verdict, a quiet alliance began to form. Governments that had long been divided by borders and old grudges found themselves setting aside their differences for a greater cause. The human race, often torn apart by internal conflict, suddenly saw a larger enemy, one that saw them as nothing more than a dangerous, unworthy species. The realization that their future was in their own hands galvanized them. They would not wait for permission, they would fight, but in a way no one would expect. A clandestine project was set into motion, one that had been talked about in hushed tones for years, but had never been fully realized: the creation of a new ship. A ship that would break the blockade. The ship's name was Terra Exemplar, a symbol of everything humanity stood for: resilience, intelligence, and the unwavering drive to survive. No one knew exactly how it would come to life, but the minds of Earth's greatest engineers, scientists, and visionaries were focused on one goal: to build a ship capable of breaking free from the isolation imposed by the tribunal. It was more than a ship. It was a declaration that humanity would not be abandoned, not even by the stars themselves. Simultaneously, the world's greatest military and diplomatic minds began to prepare for the challenge ahead. If they were to send a message to the tribunal, they would need a team of individuals who could represent Earth's best qualities. They would need soldiers, strategists, and diplomats, each of whom could prove that humanity was worthy of the stars. But more importantly, they needed people who could think beyond the tribunal's rigid expectations. The humans had a chance to change the tribunal's mind, to show them that Earth wasn't just a chaotic, violent planet. It was a world capable of growth, of change, and of unity. Back at the tribunal, the galactic leaders observed Earth's reaction with growing confusion. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't cowering in fear. Instead, they were doing what they always did best: they were adapting. The tribunal had underestimated them. The Council of Galactic Elders had expected Earth's destruction to come from its own hand. They had thought the humans would collapse under the weight of their own faults. But instead, the humans were uniting, quietly building something that could undo the sentence. It was impossible. It was unimaginable. And yet, it was happening. A quiet sense of doubt began to creep into the minds of the tribunal. They had seen many species before, many civilizations, but none like the humans. Their history was one of endless struggle, and yet they never seemed to break. The more the tribunal watched, the more they realized that they might have made a grave mistake. It was not just the technology the humans were developing that was unsettling, it was their spirit. The tribunal had never encountered a species so willing to sacrifice, so willing to fight for something greater than themselves. For the first time, the Galactic Council found itself questioning the decision. Could humanity really rise to the challenge they were about to face? Could the humans actually prove themselves worthy of the stars? But the tribunal quickly pushed those doubts aside. They had made their decision, and they believed it was the right one. Earth's sentence was final. No one, not even the humans, could break it. But in the back of their minds, they couldn't shake the nagging thought that they had, perhaps, underestimated the human race. Still, the tribunal remained confident. The humans would soon realize the impossibility of their task, and the galaxy would remain secure under their watchful eyes. But on Earth, things were changing. The Terra Exemplar project moved forward at a pace that even the engineers hadn't predicted. And when the ship was revealed, gleaming in the light of the sun, there was no doubt left. This was a ship designed not just for travel, but for defiance. The human resolve was now a tangible thing, a force the tribunal had not expected. As Earth looked toward the stars, there was only one thought on everyone's mind: this is far from over. The sentence might have been passed, but humanity's fight was only beginning. In the weeks that followed the tribunal's declaration, the world was a strange mixture of uncertainty and purpose. People walked the streets, talking in hushed tones about what they had just heard. The sentence had shaken them, but it was also waking something deep inside the human spirit, something primal. It was a force that had always existed but had never been fully recognized until now. Humanity's response to isolation was not one of fear, but of a silent awakening. First, no one knew what exactly to do. Earth's leaders, reeling from the shock, met in secret to figure out a way to respond. Governments that had once been divided by years of political infighting began to cooperate. Borders that had been drawn for centuries began to blur, and for the first time in a long time, the human race seemed united. There was no time to waste. The tribunal had judged them, but it was not the end. It was the beginning of something else, something far more dangerous, not just for the tribunal, but for the entire galaxy. The first signs of this awakening were small, almost imperceptible. It started in the laboratories of Earth's most brilliant scientists. These men and women, who had once worked on separate projects and ideas, now found themselves gathering together, pooling their knowledge. They were no longer working on ordinary inventions. They were working on a breakthrough, a ship that could carry humanity out of isolation and into the stars once again. It wasn't just about getting out of Earth's atmosphere. It was about proving something far more important. It was about showing the tribunal that humanity was not the reckless species they had been judged to be. In every corner of Earth, people began to prepare. The Terra Exemplar, the ship that had begun as little more than a wild dream, started to take shape. Its construction was top secret, hidden away from the eyes of any would-be spies or enemies. But the whispers of its existence spread quickly. Engineers, builders, and technicians from all over the world volunteered to work on the project. It became a symbol, something far greater than just a ship. It was the hope of an entire species, the last chance for humanity to prove that they could be more than the sum of their flaws. Every bolt, every line, every inch of the ship was a testament to Earth's determination. As the project progressed, the tension on Earth grew. For decades, the people of Earth had lived in a state of constant conflict, torn apart by their own differences. Wars, political corruption, poverty, and social unrest had seemed like the inevitable condition of the human race. But now, they were united by something far greater than any of their past divisions. They were united by survival. It wasn't just about saving themselves from the tribunal sentence. It was about securing their future in a galaxy that had already deemed them unworthy. This realization drove every human to their limit. The world's top military leaders were not left behind in this awakening. Nations began to organize, not for war, but for a purpose far more pressing: the creation of the vanguard. Initiative, a program that would select the best of humanity to represent Earth in the event that the Terra Exemplar succeeded, became the new priority. Soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and strategists from all walks of life began to train for something that no one had ever prepared for before. It was not just about defense, it was about proving that humanity could rise to the challenge. But as Earth prepared, the tribunal remained unaware of the storm brewing. They had expected the humans to collapse under the weight of their own failure. They had expected Earth's people to fight amongst themselves or fall into despair. Instead, they were witnessing the most unexpected thing of all: unity. The tribunal had underestimated humanity, believing that their faults would be their downfall. They had assumed that Earth's history of violence and division meant that humans could not rise above their own mistakes. They were wrong. What they didn't realize was that humans, when faced with true adversity, had the power to adapt, to change, and to unite in ways that no other species could. Behind the scenes, the work on Terra Exemplar grew more intense. As the weeks turned into months, the project accelerated. The ship was no longer just a design on paper. It was becoming real. The materials, gathered from every corner of the Earth, were assembled in secret. The energy required to power the ship was unlike anything humanity had ever used before. They were using salvaged alien technology, enhanced with their own innovations. The ship would be humanity's last chance to prove they belonged among the stars. The political leaders of Earth, once divided by borders, now spoke with one voice. The message they broadcast to the galaxy was simple: we are not what you think we are. It was a bold statement, one that would echo across the galaxy and challenge the tribunal's decision. They were not simply asking for permission to be a part of the galactic community. They were demanding it. And they would not stop until they were heard. The construction of the ship was a marvel in itself. It wasn't just the technology that was impressive, it was the sheer willpower of the people behind it. Every worker, every engineer, every soldier knew what was at stake. The weight of the task was heavy, but the promise of success was even heavier. The ship's design was a blend of practicality and raw ambition. It wasn't just meant to escape Earth's atmosphere, it was meant to defy the very judgment of the tribunal. Every inch of the Terra Exemplar was carefully crafted to send a message. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a statement of humanity's strength. But the real test was yet to come. As the project neared completion, whispers began to spread that the humans weren't just building a ship. They were building a force capable of reaching the stars and confronting the tribunal itself. The humans were not content to simply survive isolation. They were going to fight for their place in the galaxy. And they would do it by showing the tribunal that they had something no other species had: the will to rise above every challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. The tribunal, still unaware of the growing power on Earth, continued with its plans to keep humanity in isolation. But as the humans moved closer to completing their ship, something began to change in the Galactic Council. There were murmurs of doubt, whispers of uncertainty. Could the humans actually do it? Could they prove the tribunal wrong? The question lingered in the minds of the Council's members, but they quickly dismissed it. After all, the humans had never shown this level of cooperation before. What made them think they could succeed now? The next few weeks would determine whether Earth's awakening was a true turning point or simply a flash of hope doomed to fade. But one thing was certain: the tribunal had made a grave mistake. And humanity was about to prove just how dangerous that mistake could be. As the final pieces of Terra Exemplar were put into place, the world watched with bated breath. The ship was not just a symbol of human determination. It was a signal to the galaxy that humanity's true potential had only just begun to be realized. The moment of reckoning was approaching, and no one, not even the tribunal, could predict what would happen next. The day humanity made its first move to break free from the isolation imposed by the Galactic Tribunal was nothing short of historic. Terra Exemplar had been completed. A marvel of human ingenuity, it gleamed under the light of the sun as it rested on the launch pad, ready to challenge the very judgment that had threatened to condemn Earth forever. For months, the ship had been built in secret, a symbol of humanity's refusal to accept the tribunal's decree. But now, the time had come to face the galaxy. The humans had prepared for this moment, as if their very survival depended on it, and for many, it did. Captain Alina Graves, the leader of the first crew to embark on this unprecedented mission, stood at the helm of Terra Exemplar, her mind racing with a mixture of fear and determination. She knew the stakes. If they failed, Earth would remain forever locked away from the stars. If they succeeded, the tribunal would be forced to acknowledge humanity's strength, their ability to rise from the ashes of isolation, and prove they were not the chaotic, self-destructive species the galaxy had feared. The countdown began. The atmosphere on Earth was electric. Around the world, millions of people gathered, eyes fixed on the sky, waiting for the moment when Terra Exemplar would leave the planet's atmosphere for the first time. No one knew exactly what to expect. They only knew that Earth was not about to be abandoned without a fight. And if the tribunal thought they could just erase humanity from the galactic map, they were about to be proven wrong. The ship's engines roared to life, sending a shockwave of energy through the atmosphere. It rose steadily, cutting through the layers of air, passing through the clouds that had once been Earth's only shield against the unknown. As Terra Exemplar reached the edge of space, the crew aboard the ship felt a collective breath of anticipation. Captain Graves looked out of the window at the vast, empty expanse ahead of them. The stars, once forbidden to humanity, now seemed so close. Yet, with that proximity came an overwhelming sense of danger. The tribunal's blockade was not just an obstacle, it was a warning. The first contact would not be easy. The humans knew that. The tribunal had made it clear that Earth was to remain isolated for a reason. But Captain Graves believed, as did everyone on board, that the humans were ready for what lay ahead. The ship's mission was not simply to travel to the tribunal's borders. It was to break through those borders, to deliver a message that could not be ignored. Humanity would not be silenced. As Terra Exemplar soared through the void, it quickly approached the point where Earth's atmosphere ended and the cold expanse of space began. The crew, though trained for many scenarios, couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. No one had ever challenged the tribunal in such a direct manner. Their presence on the ship itself was a message, a defiant stand against a decision made by beings far older and more powerful than they could even comprehend. The ship's sensors began picking up strange signals as they neared the edge of known space. They were on the verge of crossing into the restricted zone, the space where no human had ever traveled since the tribunal sentence was passed. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Then, suddenly, the first sign of opposition arrived. A fleet of ships appeared on the radar, alien vessels that had been monitoring Terra Exemplar's approach. These ships were massive, their design unlike anything the humans had ever seen before. The hulls of these vessels gleamed in the cold light of space, like ominous shadows moving in on the small human ship. They came without warning, a silent reminder that the tribunal's watchful eyes were always present. The humans had expected this, but even with the anticipation, the sight of the alien ships sent a chill down Captain Graves' spine. The alien fleet did not open fire. Instead, they surrounded Terra Exemplar, their ships forming a perfect blockade. The tension in the air was palpable. For a moment, it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. The humans on board Terra Exemplar knew that they had crossed a line. But now, they had to prove they were more than just a species of destruction. They had to show that they were capable of diplomacy, of reason, and that their survival depended not on war, but on the belief that they deserved a place in the galaxy. Captain Graves spoke into the communications system, her voice steady despite the immense pressure. "This is Captain Alina Graves of Terra Exemplar. We come in peace, and we come to show the tribunal that Earth is not what you think it is. We are here to prove that we are more than the sum of our mistakes." For a long, agonizing moment, there was no response. The fleet of alien ships simply hovered, their weapons silently pointed at the human vessel. It was an unspoken message of warning. You have no right to be here. The silence was deafening. Captain Graves gripped the armrests of her seat, waiting for any sign of movement, any indication that the tribunal was listening. Then, a voice crackled through the communication system, distorted but unmistakable. "You have defied the tribunal. You do not belong here. Return to Earth at once." It was the voice of the tribunal, the very beings who had sentenced Earth to isolation. The coldness in the voice was almost palpable, their belief that humanity had no place among the stars clear in every word. The humans on Terra Exemplar had anticipated this response. But hearing it spoken out loud was different. It wasn't just a judgment. And yet, Captain Graves stood tall, her resolve unwavering. "We will not return," she responded firmly. "You made a mistake when you judged us. We will prove that humanity has something to offer the galaxy. We are not just a violent, chaotic species. We are capable of growth, of learning, and of contributing in ways you cannot yet understand." The silence that followed her words was more intense than ever. For a brief moment, Captain Graves thought that they might have sealed their fate, that the tribunal would end it all right there. But then, something unexpected happened. The alien ships slowly began to move, retreating just slightly, their position shifting from an oppressive blockade to something far more neutral. It was as though the tribunal's fleet was unsure of what to do next. "We are giving you one chance, Captain Graves," came the voice again, this time softer, though still firm. "Do not make the mistake of thinking you can challenge the tribunal's decision without consequence." Captain Graves' heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "We won't turn back. This is our message. We won't be silenced." With those words, Terra Exemplar broke through the blockade, and humanity's first step into the galactic stage had been taken. The alien ships remained in orbit, watching, waiting. The tribunal had warned them, but humanity had made its stance clear. They would not bow down. They would not be forgotten. They would fight for their place in the stars, no matter the cost. As Terra Exemplar pushed deeper into space, Captain Graves and her crew knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger. But they had taken the first step, and that was all that mattered. The galaxy had just witnessed the birth of something new, a force that would not be easily ignored. And for humanity, there was no going back now. The future of the human race, uncertain as it might be, had just begun. The tension in the cold expanse of space was thick, almost suffocating. Terra Exemplar had broken through the tribunal's blockade, but no one aboard the human vessel could afford to believe that the fight was over. They had made their stand, but the true test had only just begun. The alien fleet that had once surrounded them was still there, lingering in the vastness of space, watching every move they made. The voice of the tribunal still echoed in Captain Alina Graves' mind. One chance. It was a warning, and it hung over them like a sword, waiting to fall. As the human ship moved further into uncharted territory, the crew of Terra Exemplar prepared themselves for the unknown. The stars, once a symbol of hope, now seemed like a labyrinth, vast and unfathomable. No one knew exactly what would happen next. Would the tribunal try to destroy them? Would they be driven back to Earth in defeat? Or was this the beginning of something far more dangerous, a war between humanity and the entire galaxy? The ship's crew, though vastly outnumbered and underprepared for what they might face, stood firm. They had defied the tribunal once, and now they had to prove that they had the strength to carry through. But as the hours passed, the signs were not good. The alien ships had not moved. They remained in orbit, circling Terra Exemplar as if waiting for the right moment to strike. There was no communication from them, no further warning. The silence was unbearable. Captain Graves paced the bridge of the ship, her thoughts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. She had always known that this mission would be dangerous, but she hadn't fully understood the extent of it until now. There was no way back. The only option was to keep moving forward, but forward into what? The unknown stretched out before them, a dark and silent void. Then, without warning, the sensors aboard Terra Exemplar began to hum. A ripple of energy spread across the ship's systems, a tremor that sent a wave of tension through the crew. The alarms blared, their shrill sound slicing through the thick atmosphere of uncertainty. The crew members exchanged looks of confusion and fear. What was happening? Captain Graves' eyes shot to the screen, her heart racing. And then she saw it, a new fleet, far larger than the first, emerging from the distant darkness. This was no simple response from the tribunal. What they were witnessing was something far worse: reinforcements. A second wave of alien ships, countless in number, began to appear from the depths of space, blocking any escape routes. Their weapons systems powered up, the dark shapes of their ships casting long shadows over Terra Exemplar. It was clear now, the Tribunal was not merely testing humanity. They were preparing to eliminate them. The crew was stunned. The first wave of ships had been daunting, but this was something else entirely. The humans had expected resistance, but not this kind of overwhelming force. The stakes had just been raised to an unimaginable level. Terra Exemplar was now surrounded on all sides, and every member of the crew could feel the oppressive weight of it. Captain Graves remained calm, her voice steady as she issued command. "We need to be ready for anything. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Get every weapon system online. We'll fight to the last. Humanity will not back down." But inside, her mind raced. Could they actually survive this? Could they outmaneuver an entire armada? The odds seemed impossibly stacked against them. But humanity had always found a way, even when it seemed there was no hope. This, Graves knew, was their ultimate test, a test that would define whether humanity could survive the Tribunal's wrath or if it would be snuffed out before it had a chance to rise. The massive alien fleet closed in, and the crew braced for the worst. The first shots came suddenly, piercing the cold silence of space. Bright flashes lit up the darkness as the alien ships unleashed their firepower. The Terra Exemplar rocked violently from the impact, and the crew was thrown forward. Alarms blared as the ship's shields flickered under the barrage. This was it. The test of fire had begun. Yet, in the chaos, something remarkable happened. The humans aboard Terra Exemplar did not falter. They adapted. The ship's tactical team sprang into action, calculating evasive maneuvers with precision. The crew worked in perfect harmony, moving swiftly to repair damage and return fire. The humans had no choice but to fight back with everything they had. They had no backup, no reinforcements, no allies. The Terra Exemplar was the last hope for humanity, and every person aboard understood that their actions would decide the fate of Earth. As Terra Exemplar dodged and weaved through the enemy fire, Captain Graves made a decision. They couldn't just play defense. If they were going to survive this, they would need to outsmart the alien fleet. She ordered a full power surge to the ship's engines, pushing the ship to its limits. Terra Exemplar shot forward, moving faster than the alien ships could anticipate. The crew held their breath as the ship rocketed through the stars, narrowly avoiding the beams of alien fire that followed in their wake. It was a high-risk move, but it was the only option they had left. For a moment, it seemed as if they might have broken free. The alien fleet, caught off guard by the sudden burst of speed, struggled to catch up. But the respite was short-lived. The Tribunal's ships, more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered, quickly adapted. They closed the gap once again, and the battle raged on. The sheer size of the alien fleet made it impossible to outmaneuver them for long. The odds were still against humanity, and everyone aboard Terra Exemplar knew that each moment they survived was a gift. The battle reached its peak as the human ship exchanged fire with the alien fleet. Explosions lit up the darkness, and for a moment it seemed as though all hope was lost. The Terra Exemplar had taken heavy damage, and the crew was running low on resources. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, the humans refused to give up. They fought like they had nothing to lose because they didn't. If they lost here, humanity would be lost forever. And then, in the midst of the chaos, something unexpected happened. The alien fleet slowed, almost as if they were hesitating. The barrage of fire lessened, and the ships began to spread out in formation, as if waiting for something. Captain Graves, sensing the shift, ordered the ship to halt. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the voice of the Tribunal spoke again, but this time, it was not the cold, harsh tone they had heard before. "You have survived." For now, the voice said, a hint of something like curiosity in its words. "Perhaps. Humanity is more than we thought." The realization hit Captain Graves like a blow. The Tribunal was not just testing them, they were watching. They had seen the humans' resilience, their ability to adapt and survive against impossible odds. This wasn't the end of the battle, but it was a turning point. The humans had passed the first test, but there would be more to come. The tribunal had underestimated them, but now they were watching, waiting to see if humanity could prove that their survival was more than just a fluke. The crew of Terra Exemplar breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had survived the test of fire, but they knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the tribunal's reach was long. But for the first time, humanity had shown that it was not a species to be underestimated. And, as Captain Graves looked out into the stars, she knew one thing for certain: humanity was just getting started. The stars glittered coldly in the distance, indifferent to the fierce battle that had just unfolded. Terra Exemplar had survived, but the price was steep. The human ship was damaged, its hull scarred from the barrage of alien fire. The crew, though weary and battered, stood resolute. Captain Alina Graves stood at the helm, her expression hard as steel. They had passed the first test, but deep down, she knew the real struggle had only just begun. The tribunal's words still echoed in her mind: "You have survived." For now. There was no mistaking the hidden meaning behind those words. They were not finished with humanity. No, this was only a brief pause before the next challenge, the next test. And this time, the stakes would be even higher. After the unexpected retreat of the alien fleet, Terra Exemplar drifted into a tense, uneasy silence. The human crew couldn't afford to relax, even for a moment. They had been given a fragile reprieve, but there was no guarantee it would last. The voice of the tribunal, now softened, hinted at something far more dangerous: a warning, perhaps, or a deeper game at play. The humans had made it this far, but the price of survival was unknown. As Terra Exemplar limped through space, Captain Graves knew they couldn't afford to wait for the tribunal to make the next move. They needed to take control of the situation before it spiraled completely out of their hands. Captain Graves gathered her senior officers in the ship's briefing room, the tension in the air almost palpable. The crew was exhausted, both physically and mentally. But the captain knew that now, more than ever, they needed to be sharp. Their survival depended on it. "We've been given a chance," she began, her voice calm yet firm. "But it's clear the tribunal is not finished with us. They're waiting for something. We need to find out what that is before they make their next move." The crew nodded, each person understanding the gravity of the situation. Lieutenant Jameson, the ship's tactical officer, spoke up. "The tribunal isn't just testing us, Captain. They're trying to see if we'll break. They want to know if we'll fold under pressure. But they're not prepared for what we're capable of." His words hung in the air, a mixture of defiance and determination. The humans aboard Terra Exemplar had already shown their resolve. They had fought and survived against the odds. But now they needed something more: strategy, cunning, and perhaps a bit of luck. Graves nodded thoughtfully. "We've survived their attack, but the question is, what comes next? We need to make them believe we're not just a small, insignificant species. We have to turn the tables on them. Let them see that we're capable of far more than they expect." It was a plan fraught with danger. There was no guarantee that taking the initiative would work. But the alternative, sitting back and waiting for the tribunal to decide their fate, was far worse. They needed to turn the tables, to create an opening that would allow humanity to seize control of its own destiny. Captain Graves was determined to lead them in that direction. As the crew prepared for their next move, the ship's sensors picked up an anomaly. A faint signal, unlike any they had encountered before, was detected on the edge of their radar. It was coming from deep within the galaxy, far beyond the tribunal's blockade. Captain Graves felt a surge of hope. Could this be the opportunity they had been waiting for? Was this their chance to turn the tide? With little hesitation, she gave the order to follow the signal. The crew of Terra Exemplar set course for the mysterious source, knowing full well that they were heading into unknown and dangerous territory. They had no idea what lay ahead, but if there was even the slightest chance that they could gain an advantage, they had to take it. The journey was long and tense. The ship's systems hummed with energy as they pushed forward, leaving the remnants of the tribunal's fleet behind them. As the minutes turned into hours, the crew held their breath. Every sensor sweep, every scan of the surroundings revealed nothing unusual. But Captain Graves refused to let doubt cloud her judgment. The signal was still there, faint but constant, guiding them forward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the source of the signal. It wasn't what anyone had expected. There, hidden in the folds of space, was a massive structure, not natural, but artificial. The object was unlike anything the crew had ever seen before. It seemed ancient, its dark surface scarred with time. There were no signs of life, no detectable weapon systems. It was silent, almost eerie in its stillness. But the signal had led them here, and they had no choice but to investigate. Captain Graves ordered a scan of the object, and the results were nothing short of astonishing. The structure was incredibly advanced, far beyond the capabilities of humanity. But there was something else, something that the Tribunal had not anticipated. Hidden within the structure was a network of technology that was capable of disrupting the very communication systems used by the Tribunal. It was an ancient relic, something forgotten, yet it held the key to their survival. The Tribunal had built its power on control and surveillance, but this artifact, this ancient device, could negate their influence, scrambling their signals and rendering their fleets blind. Graves' heart raced as she realized the magnitude of their discovery. This was the ultimate weapon, the ultimate reversal. If they could use this technology, they could turn the tables on the Tribunal and bring them to their knees. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift. The Tribunal, which had once looked down on humanity as weak and insignificant, was now facing a force that could challenge their authority. And humanity would be the one to wield it. But there was one problem. The technology was complex and alien. It would take time to fully understand how to use it, and time was something the crew of Terra Exemplar did not have. The Tribunal could strike at any moment, and they knew it. Captain Graves made a decision. "We can't wait any longer," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "We'll use what we have. We don't need to understand everything right now. We just need to disrupt their communication just enough to create chaos. If we can do that, we can make our move." The crew worked quickly, applying all their knowledge and ingenuity to integrate the alien technology with Terra Exemplar systems. It was a race against time, a desperate gamble. But the humans aboard the ship were used to that. They had gambled their lives before, and they had survived. This would be no different. Finally, the moment arrived. The device was activated, and a surge of energy coursed through Terra Exemplar systems. The crew held their breath as the ship's communication systems flared to life. The Tribunal's fleets were no longer able to coordinate with one another. Their weapon systems were offline, their fleets scattered and confused. The balance of power had shifted, and the humans now held the upper hand. In that moment, Captain Graves realized the full weight of what they had accomplished. They had not just survived, they had reversed the game. They had turned the Tribunal's power against them. The galaxy, which had once viewed humanity as little more than a nuisance, was about to learn that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. The humans had not just fought back. They had claimed their place among the stars. As Terra Exemplar drifted through the stars, its crew knew that the battle was far from over. But for the first time, they were no longer on the defensive. They had gained the advantage, and with it, the hope that humanity's future among the stars was within their grasp.